All right, well, it is a pleasure to be here. We're here at Rebel House. I'm with Naomi Pacheco, and she is the head instructor, head trainer of the instructors here at Rebel House.
Yes, I am.
So the reason why I want to do this interview, Naomi and I actually went to high school together, but what has been awesome about your journey, following you and watching you, is you kind of had this dream. You want to go out to Hollywood, and you've done that, but you've also made your way back here to Utah, and this is a show, you know, most of the people have Utah ties. But what you've been able to build and what you've been able to kind of make of a life that you've kind of designed that you wanted to have. And I think it's really cool. I think a lot of people are going to be very interested to hear your story.
Absolutely. You know, it's really interesting because I started out as this little girl just with a big dream to dance. And I just never gave up on that. And I really listened to my instincts and tried to follow that the best I could.
Well, I love it. And one of the things that you've been able to do the last 4 years is you are one of the choreographers on
So You Think
You Can Dance,
yes.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us a little bit about that. I think that's such a fascinating, so many people watch that show. I mean, I think they've been around for, feels like 15, 20 years. But
yeah, it's on season 15. It's on right now. It's on Fox, so everybody watch. So I'm assistant choreographer to Dave Scott. Dave Scott, he's choreographed You Got Served, all the Step Up movies, Dance Flick, Stomp the Yard, and so he's a pretty big deal. But I'm so lucky to work with just such incredible people on that show. It's a big family.
So tell us a little bit. So you leave Utah, you headed out to California
Yes.
to pursue dancing, is that correct?
That's right.
And so kind of lead us through your journey.
So when I first left Salt Lake City, I did a little pit stop in Vegas for like 5 years. And out there was in every burlesque show and every Vegas show you could possibly think of. And I was dancing in the clubs, and I worked as a body paint model, believe it or not, where I literally would just wear paint.
Love it.
I did Steve Wynn's Super Bowl party, and it was the best years, though. It was a really great growing experience for me, I think, being, you know, this little Latina in Salt Lake City, not knowing her voice and not really knowing who to look up to here, you know, because back then, you know, being a Latina in Salt Lake City was different back in those days. So I was able to expand my wings and kind of find out who I was and what I love to do. So Vegas, I met some of my greatest friends, and then I kept moving to LA.
So why did you move on from Vegas at that point after you've been there for 5 years?
Well, Vegas is really great for the entertainment world as far as like shows and I mean, I still was dancing, but I wanted more. I wanted to do music videos. I wanted to do film. I wanted to do TV, and it's a little restricted out there, and so I had to keep moving.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so when you got to LA, I mean, a lot of people go out to LA, they've got big dreams, and a lot of people just, unfortunately, there's a lot of work out there. A lot of talented people move to LA. Yeah. Was it harder than you thought to kind of find your niche out there, or? Absolutely.
It was a little difficult for me because when I first moved out there, I actually had my own dance studio. And so I thought, you know, well, maybe this is my place. Maybe, you know, dance education is my thing right now. And so I had kind of put the music video and the TV and film on the back burner. And I was running my dance studio out there. But then I realized there was just this fire still inside of me. And I really wanted to own up to that. And it takes a while. So you have to take a lot of classes. You have to get your face out there, be seen, get an agent, and do all of the steps necessary to stay relevant.
How did you find like an agent that you could trust, or was it difficult to not be taken advantage of by different people out there?
No, not at all, because, you know, I think the biggest thing for any person looking to be in the modeling agency, the dance world, number one is you'll never have to pay for anything. That's number one. So if they want to invest in you and they want to invest in your talent, then that's what they'll do. You don't ever have to pay for anything. Luckily, I've had great experiences. I've always had a really great support team behind me on that.
Oh, that's cool. I remember when I was like 21, I just actually got home from my LDS mission. Yeah. And me and Nick Hallen, I don't remember Nick that went to high school with us. He actually helps sponsor the show. He's a plastic surgeon now. But we were at the mall, at Cottonwood Mall, and they were doing this walkway, and you could win a scholarship to like these acting classes, right? Me and him were kind of being funny, and we ended up winning. They gave it to both of us. And we're like, let's just go down there and check it out. And we walk in, and it's this, it's a model agency. And clearly we were there for the acting, and we walk in and we're like just kind of totally not feeling it, not into it. And all of a sudden the girls show up, and there was like 35 of them, and they're all there, just these models. And they start walking around in their like lingerie. We look at each other like, all right, let's give it a shot. Let's just see how it goes. It was pretty funny. Yeah.
No, that's great.
But I remember they kept wanting to like add us. Well, if you want to add this, you got to pay this, and then you got to pay this. And I started thinking, oh, this is a pretty good business. You get people in the door, and I was like, okay, well,
yeah.
That was the end of my modeling career.
Okay, well, short-lived, but I think you're doing okay.
You know what? It was
you're doing all right.
I found another route to get it. It was funny because the thing I remember the most, I got my tonsils out. And I lost like 15 pounds. And I came in, and the lady in charge, she just looks at me and she goes, what are you doing? You look fabulous. I need to get my girls on this diet. And I'm like, I got my tonsils out. I haven't been able to eat for 7 days. So
there you have it.
Yeah, I think she made them all go get their tonsils out. But
that's funny.
So you get out to LA. And so when did you catch your first break out there in LA?
Oh, wow. So the very first choreographer that I worked with in Los Angeles was Cheryl Murakami, and she choreographed Beyonce's Who Run the World Girls. So working with her was a dream come true, and from there I trained constantly, and that's number one, is to continue to be a student in whatever you do, whether it's the cycling world, the dance world, your world. You always have to educate yourself because nobody can take this away. That's number one. So that's what I did. I was in every single class. And at that time, I had my daughter, Rhythm. So, it was tough. It was tough being a mom and trying to balance that, being up with her all day and all night, and then also going and like expending all of this energy.
How old were you this time?
I was 31, which is pretty old for the dance world, which is really, pretty old. So also trying to like keep my head in it. Being in classes and not worrying about, oh my gosh, I hope she's okay, or I wonder if she napped. And so that was a hard transition for me, going from stay-at-home mommy to into the industry. And but you make it work. You can't give up. You got to keep going.
Well, and so at what point did you join So You Think You Can Dance?
So I joined So You Think You Can Dance about 4 or 5 years ago. And Dave Scott had booked me on a couple gigs. And I worked with him on, some TV series. I was in some music videos, and I got some really great experience on the production side and being in the background, and not just in front of the camera, but being behind the camera. And like I said, education is key in whatever business you're in. And, eventually my body's going to wear out, and I'm not going to be able to be as active as I am. So I'm going to have to lean on something else. And luckily I've been educated in different perspectives.
And so what was your favorite part about being a part of such a big TV show? Like, walk us through, I think the audience would love to hear, what did a day in your life look like when you were working with Dave?
So basically what we do is we submit music. And, they say yes or no, and then they say, well, what are you thinking? What's your idea behind this? So, for instance, a couple seasons we worked with the kids, and we got to work with Kita in Fiction. And we were like, what if we do like a modern day Pinocchio? Because we do hip hop. And so I'm trained in all styles, but when on the show, we just do hip hop. And we're like, what if we do a modern day Pinocchio? And that'd be really cool. Let's modernize it a little bit. And so they danced to Panda. And, they were popping and locking, and it's just really awesome to see the creativity that comes out from them. Because when we work with them, it's almost kind of like workshopping. So we come in with some choreography, but we also like to see what they can do because we want to bring out their strengths. So we'll come up with the choreography, and then we'll workshop with them, and we only have 2 days to work with them, a very limited amount of time.
That's all the amount of time they're working with you
That's all the amount of time that we get with them. So we're shoving choreography down their throat, but then at the same time we're like, oh yeah, we like that, so let's put that in there. So we like to, bounce back off of each other, and because they're artists as well, and it's just a really big family, and it's a great dynamic to bring out their strengths, because that's what the show's about. And then from there, it's production day. We have rehearsals, so we'll rehearse in the studio for a couple of hours, and then it's off to CBS where we film, and we get maybe an hour on stage with them to kind of work through the routine as far as spatial and knowing your space and whatnot. And then from there, it's like run through. We get maybe like 2 or 3 run throughs, and then it's live show. It's very fast.
I would have thought that there was a lot more training and going into it.
Yeah, no, we only the whole entire process is each episode is about 4 days.
Okay. And you're doing it again this year, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're on season 15.
And so how are you going to do, because you're now, you're managing all the trainers here at Rebel House.
Yes.
So how are you going to be able to manage, being a single mom, managing this here, and then also being on So You Think You Can Dance?
That's a great question, Jimmy.
You haven't thought that one yet?
Yeah, right. I take day by day. And as I was saying before, luckily I have such a great support team behind me, from my mom, from my dad, from my parents, my brother, but also all of the instructors here at Rebel House. Like, we always just come together and help each other out. And I think you're only as good as your team. And so I pride myself on putting good people in my life.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of fun. I'm kind of the same way. I can work really hard if I have a couple different things going.
Right.
I don't like to get into one monotonous task, right? So like, I'll go hard in the morning, then I'll go work out, then I'll go hard again, and then mix in doing some podcasting or something. And it makes a 12-hour day feel much shorter.
And the only way that I can be, the best choreographer or the best cycling instructor or the best boxing instructor is by removing myself from the situation, by, turning everything off and just being mom. Everything's turned off. I'm not going to answer emails. I'm not going to dance. I'm not going to discuss anything that has to do with work. It's just mommy time right now. And that helps me to be more creative. That helps me to get grounded. And then at times when it's time for work, then it's like, okay. And oftentimes you have to multitask, especially being a single mom. But it's also nice to just be like, I'm just going to handle this right now because that's all I can handle. And you do the best you can.
No, I really love that. Well, and so many people, I think, no matter what your situation is, I think, if you work through whatever the situation you are in, and you get a lot of fulfillment from that, right? I think people rob themselves of the fulfillment. They'll make whatever excuse, whether it's, I don't live with a support system around me, or I'm a single mom, or I'm, a single dad, whatever it might be, and they let that kind of handicap their ability to do amazing things. And I really love that part of your story, that you've kind of embraced that, and how much fulfillment you get from being able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when I first got into the cycling world, so in Los Angeles, I taught at SoulCycle, and that was my therapy. That's what got me through my transition of leaving a relationship and becoming a single mom, and riding that bike in that dark room with the lights and the music blasting. That was my therapy. And I knew that was something that wasn't just going to get me through, but also get my daughter through. And the only way that she could function at her best was if I was at my best.
Yeah, there's a reason on the airplane they tell you to put your own mask on first, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of other people,
Absolutely.
Right? There's one of my favorite quotes is Harvey from the TV show Suits. I don't know if you watch that or not.
I haven't.
But his quote is, and you can look at this two ways, but I look at it as, if I'm taking care of myself, I know how I show up in the lives of other people. Mm-hmm. So I always try to take care of myself first, so that I can, whenever anyone else needs me, I can show up the right way. Absolutely. But his quote is, ever loved somebody so much you would do anything for them? Well, make that somebody yourself and do whatever the hell you want.
That's right.
And I just love that quote. That's actually on my phone, but anyway. Well, and so is that kind of how you got into the cycling world? You just started doing it as like an exercise, and then you just really embraced it? Or how did that come about?
I knew what SoulCycle was. I went to a couple classes, and I liked it. I thought it was great. I wasn't completely sold on it, I think, yet. But then I became a single mom. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to need to find some more work. So I put in for a front desk job, and they said, can you send your resume? I'm like, sure, of course. My dance resume, right? Because I've been a dancer since I was 16 years old. That's the only thing that I have. So I gave them my dance resume, and they called me and they said, do you want to be an instructor? And I said, sure, yeah. And 3-4 years later, here we are.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and for our audience listening, because cycling, people really get into this. Your audience your members are so engaged. Mm-hmm. What does it do for somebody when they get on the bike? Walk us through the experience of coming to Rebel, for example.
So coming to Rebel House, we ask that you keep an open mind, for sure, because it's intimidating. Everybody always says, I'm scared. I'm going to die. It's like, it's okay to be scared, but you're not going to die. You're going to make it, I promise. So we like to just give them that extra comfort in knowing that you're supported here. There's no judgments in this room. There's no insecurities. You can sit down whenever you want. We ride to the beat of the music. The music is the driving force behind what we do in this room. Our instructors spend hours on their playlists just to create the right vibe in here, because that's what it's about. It's about an experience. You're going to get a workout, don't worry. You're going to work out. But you know what? We want to work this out too. And we want to work some things out in here. And so that's why we spend so much time on training our instructors to really reach down and dig down deep. You know, we have people, cancer survivors in here. We have people that, you know, just lost a loved one. And we have people that just lost their jobs. We have students. We have all size, shapes, and sizes, all ethnicities. And that's a beautiful thing.
So what makes, because you really do have like a family feel here at Rebel House, how do you create that kind of culture? Is there specific things you're doing, or that you're, you know, before or after the classes, or how does that culture come about? Because I think in the business world or in family settings, all of these things, these are helpful. You know, anybody would really be benefited by experiencing your culture and seeing what you guys have.
Yeah. You know, it's about community. We're community based. You know, we're not boutique style, or we don't just cater to one bracket. We cater to everybody, and it's been able to work here. Our instructors show up early. We know their kids' names. We know what vacations they went on. We know when they get back. And that's important to us. We know their names. We know what classes they come to. We know their birthdays. I mean, we just know everything about them, and they know everything about us. We're an open book. And that's really important for our instructors to come up on to this stage and give them a performance, give them an awesome class, but also stay real and stay authentic. And I think that's why we're able to connect so easily.
So how do you get people to give you that information, or how do you remember to, or how do you develop that kind of a relationship? Is there some things that you do in particular?
I think it's just building trust. I mean, we're on the mics, and I literally tell them, look at me and trust me. Sync up with me and know that I'm going to guide you in the right direction. And they trust me, and I respect that. I
think that's a good analogy for anything in life, right? Like, find somebody that can guide you there and let them lead you to where you're trying to get to.
Absolutely, because we have so much going on in the outside world, and it's for 45 minutes to shut off, turn everything off. And, you know, they all stare their watches. They love their watches. They love to count their calories and their steps, and I love it. But they come in here and they shut off, and they trust us. The lights go out. We tell them to sync up with their neighbor. We tell them to let the rhythm take over their bodies, and they're open to that, and that's a beautiful thing.
Well, I think there's something to be said with your background being in dancing, because in a dance you're leading or you're following somebody else, but you're working together always. You're synchronizing in that way. Well, for somebody that wants to be good at dancing, I mean, you are a dance professional. You choreograph dances for the best people in the world. How does one get better? Let's say you're terrible at dancing, or you're a beginner, you've never danced. How does one get to be pretty good at dancing?
Throwing caution to the wind, not overthinking anything. So I also teach dance. I teach a monthly dance class at Encompass Wellness. And so you're more than welcome to come to my class also. But you just can't overthink it. If you want to go take a dance class, go take a beginner dance class. There's so many of them readily available. We actually have a couple instructors here that teach dance too. You know, we have people that dance for the conservatory that are instructors, and people that have danced for Alvin Ailey in New York City. But the biggest thing is just throwing caution to the wind and just going out and doing it. Write it down, make a plan, go do it.
Is there because like if people come to me and they say, hey, I want to get better at having conversations. I want to get better at being able to tell stories and talking to people and things like that. And so I tell them, I say, go volunteer at a retirement center. These are people dying to be talked to, and it's literally the lowest form of stress or of just, there's nothing on the line. You basically can't script, and go practice on those people. Just go have conversations, learn how to talk to somebody, learn how to listen, things like that. Where would one go in Utah, for example, to get kind of that first level beginner dancing classes?
Well, I mean, like I said, I teach at Encompass Wellness, and so we teach beginner dance classes there, so you could go there. But I mean, if you're just somebody who wants to have more of like a social dance life, then I mean, what a better time than summertime when we have like all these outdoor events at the Galvin Center, and I think that they do like weekly night events, and so I think taking the structure out of it and keeping it more social is really great too.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I want to back up again a little bit here. When you first left Utah, how old were you when you first left and went to, I guess it was Las Vegas?
Las Vegas, I was 23.
23. And so was that scary to leave like where you grew up, what you knew as home?
It was really, really scary. I looked up on a talent website and saw that they were having an audition for a show. And I told my mom, I want to go audition. She said, okay, let's go. And so we went down there, I auditioned. I didn't know if I got it yet or not. And so we're like, okay, I guess we'll just wait to hear back. So we started heading home. And we were easily almost home. Maybe we were like 4 hours in already. And I got a phone call. And they said, hey, can you be at rehearsal at 7? You got it. And I'm like, okay, all right, we're going to do this. And so we turned the car back around. And we said our goodbyes in the Hard Rock, in the middle of the Hard Rock Casino, bawling our faces off. And that was the last time I was home. I didn't even come home to get my stuff. My dad drove it back down, and that was it. I hadn't been home since.
And I think people, when they go to a show in Vegas, you see and you can tell the talent level that's there. We had Jason Hewlett on an earlier podcast. He had a show in Vegas that was offered to him to have his own show. But give us an idea, people, because one of the things that I know and that you had to experience was how hard you probably had to work in order to be a successful show in Las Vegas. So walk us through what does a schedule look like when you're performing each night, and how did your day go?
The Vegas lifestyle is completely different. The time, the energy, it's completely different. I loved it. I immediately fell in love with the whole glitz and glamour and the showtime. And it was a beautiful thing because there was an opportunity for me to literally just dance and work, and that's what I did. And so you get up around 11 or 12 p.m., 1, and you would run a couple of errands, and then you're in rehearsals. You're literally in rehearsals for hours until about 7, 8 p.m. You grab some dinner, and then you get ready, and it's showtime. And you're not getting out of your shows until 1, 2 a.m., then you grab another meal and you go to sleep and you start it all over. And that was every single day. Was
it taxing to work that nightlife, that night schedule, day after day?
Well, I was a lot younger, so I could handle it. But it was a different lifestyle. And then you realize, okay, this will be my life if I stay here forever, which is fine for some people. But for me, I wanted to do more TV. I wanted to do more film. I wanted to do more commercial work. And those opportunities just are a little bit more scarce in Las Vegas. Some of the best dancers from Salt Lake City, actually, they go to Vegas, and they're dancers in Cirque du Soleil shows, and we have an incredible dance community out here in Utah. We really do have the best dancers from around the world. They live here. And it's just its own little bubble. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to make some money here, and I'm going to take the opportunities at hand, but I had to keep it moving.
So living in Utah, Vegas, and Los Angeles, you came back to Utah.
Yeah.
What's the hardest thing for you? What was your favorite thing? We'll start there. What's your favorite thing about moving back to Utah or living in Utah? And then I'll get into the other question.
Okay. My favorite thing is being around my family. Absolutely. Being able to watch my daughter be around her cousins and, watch my mom be able to be grandma 24/7. She loves that. So the support, I have more of a support team. Out in LA, I was just hustling 24/7. So it's nice to have that support again.
Yeah. And what's the hardest part about after being in two very glitzy, glamorous places? Salt Lake's obviously much more calm than that. But what was the hardest part about coming back to Utah?
I think the hardest part for me is still, after all these years, the lack of diversity here. I really struggle with that. And it's very interesting to see how developed we've come from back then. But also it's kind of disheartening to see culturally how we have to still work to have our voices be heard and be made felt like an equal here.
And so how did you experience that a lot as a child? And is it something that you struggle with your daughter or anything?
Yeah. For me as a child, I had a hard time connecting because nobody looks like me. I didn't, and everyone was like, oh, they thought I was African American. I was like, no, I'm Mexican, and they were like, oh, okay. And then they kind of kept it moving. But then it got me thinking, and I'm like, okay, there's not really a lot of people that look like me out here. So I always had a hard time connecting with someone out here. You know, as a little girl, a little boy, you want to look up to somebody. So for me, I looked up to like Selena. I looked up to like the people that were in movies. I looked up to the people I saw on TV, and that was Hollywood, that was LA. And I was like, that's where I need to be. Luckily, my daughter, Rhythm, she's born and raised in LA, so I don't think she's quite noticed it as much out here, being out here. The school had completely welcomed us with open arms and was really positive and really, really great for us. So I don't think she notices as much, but she's also only 8. So.
Well, and she's got you now as a role model too, right?
Right, that's right.
So what do you want your daughter to, like if you were to listen in on a conversation of your daughter talking to her friends, what would you want her to say about you, her mom?
Oh, God. I would want her to say how passionate I am, how loving I am, how I don't let any opportunity overcome me, and how powerful I am.
All right, I love that. Well, and looking back, I mean, let's say that there's a girl that is graduating high school right now, and she's starting to think to herself, hey, maybe I want to go do the Vegas thing, maybe I want to go do the LA thing. Yeah. Give us some advice that you would give to anybody listening that kind of is looking to maybe go down that road.
I think the biggest part going into the entertainment world is being very, very clear with your vision, being very clear with your focus. So, I want to go work in TV. Okay, well, what does that mean? Do you want to do production? Do you want to be behind the scenes? Do you want to be a dancer? Do you want to be a choreographer? Do you want to do lighting? You have to be very, very clear because it's very easy to get off the
Did that happen to you a little bit?
No, actually. No. I mean, I had to work harder at it because I got pregnant. So I had those 7 years of, okay, I'm a stay-at-home mom. So it was harder for me to get it back. But I was never deterred. I always knew what I wanted. So having a very set plan and a clear vision is so important because there are going to be, the people that are like, oh, come in and model for us, or, oh, come in, you're so great and so talented, and we'd love for you to, be at a 12-hour shoot for $100 and just stand there. So you have to be very clear about the industry, about how it works, and about where you want to be.
I think that's good advice in anything. It's, if you haven't, I feel like the more clear you can get on everything that you want, the more you can bring that specific thing into your life, right?
Absolutely.
I'm a big believer in the vision boards
100%.
and in having a direct, okay, this is what I want by this time frame, and this is how we're going to go about it.
Absolutely.
And always starting with the end and then working it backwards.
Absolutely.
Well, and in your management of, here at Rebel House, you've had a lot of opportunity to lead and do things like that. Mm-hmm. What have you seen as the difference between the people that you've been leading that have success and the ones that maybe aren't as successful? Is there some traits that you try to install in all of your trainers?
100%. I train them all the same, but they all take it differently. And the people that work harder and the people that put in the time and listen are the ones that do better. And that's time management for them because I'm giving everybody the same information. I'm training them all the same. I'm literally giving them all the same plan. But some people succeed faster and better because the time they put in on their own. Maybe they come in and they work on the bike when I'm not here, when it's not just, hey, come in and work with me. They're also going to come in the next day and the next morning and work on it, get on the mic, listen to their voice, figure out their music, call me, ask me questions. Because I'm an open book and I treat everybody the same and there's no secrets between anybody. But they have to put in the time.
I think that's pretty solid advice for anybody in any field too. Well, and when people come in, give us an example of somebody that you've seen that was afraid to come in and start working on the bike, and then they had this experience and how it changed them. Do you have somebody that sticks out that you can tell us about?
Yeah, there was one trainer who was so nervous with their voice and was very meek and mild and didn't want to come out, and it's taken her some time, and she's like, I want to get better, I don't know how. And I'm like, okay, well let's talk about you, let's talk about your life, let's talk about some things you're going through. And she's going through some things where she doesn't feel like she can be the fullest version of herself. She feels like she's having a hard time with balancing church life and home life. and cycling life and her love life. So it's like, okay, I'm not getting the fullest version of you, so you're not going to be the best version of yourself up here. So until you work through all of these things, I can't offer you anything until you're giving me the realistic version of yourself. So it's some people, it takes them longer than others. But the beautiful thing is when they come in here the next time and they're like, oh my gosh, can I do this song for you? Yes. And they get up there and they own it and they own the room. And you just see these wings come out of their body and they're just flying. And it's a beautiful thing.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and you're in a very physically exhausting situation every time you come to work. So what do you do on a day, like for anybody who, on a day where you just don't feel like going to work or you don't feel like putting in a full effort? How do you power through one of those days? Or do you have a routine or anything that you do to give you energy for days like that?
I journal every morning right before I wake up. My phone is not the first thing that I look at. I journal every morning. And I write down, what I would love to happen for the day and what I would like to see happen within the week. And I eat literally every 2-3 hours, Jimmy, like full meals. I'm eating constantly, and I have to.
It's the old body for life.
Yes. Yeah. I'm eating constantly, lots of protein, lots of water. But also what I've been working on as of late, because I know that my body is getting a little bit more tired, because I'm not only just teaching my classes, I teach about 10 classes a week, but I'm also training. So I'm training between 3 and 4 hours a day, other instructors, but I also go and take their classes. So I take their classes to evaluate them, and I ride in their classes. I don't just sit there. So getting massages, cryo, that's all very important. Stretching is a big, big one for me. Getting enough sleep is key.
How much do you sleep in a night?
I really, really try for 7. I try so hard. Lately, it's been like 5 or 6. So I would like to change that. But also, I've been training my riders to be better, to be stronger, and I put them up here on the podium so they can ride up here, and I can teach from the floor. So it's about being efficient.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about your diet and things like that. Is there some certain foods, if you're going to get into cycling heavily, that you stay away from, or is there certain foods that you just can't eat anymore?
I have removed actually a lot of sugar from, the no soda and all of those things. It's a lot of protein, chicken, vegetables, quinoa, brown rice. I have to be honest, I don't think about what I'm eating so much, just because I'm expending so much energy. So for me, I'm like, if I want a burger and french fries, then that's what I'm going to eat.
Yeah, just because you're burning so many calories in a day. It's like the Michael Phelps diet, right?
Yeah, it really is. But some foods are better than others. So before class, I'll usually have a banana, just because it's higher fat, higher sugar, but it fills my stomach, because you need something in your belly. And then right after class, a big glass of chocolate milk or a protein drink, just to hold you over until you can eat your next meal. Lots of greens, kale.
And what do you like to do on your days off?
Am I supposed to have a day off, Jimmy?
I think everybody should have plenty of days off.
I agree. And that's another thing I've been really working on, is making sure that I have a full 24 hours off. And I tell my instructors that too. Even when we put them on schedule, I'm like, what? Because they work full-time jobs. Some of them teach bar, some of them teach yoga. So I ask them, what day can you have completely off? So we all make sure that we don't schedule them on those days. But on my days off, I love spending it with my daughter. We go to museums, we go to aquariums, we go to the zoo. We go hang out with friends, we go hike. She got into mountain climbing. She climbed an 80-foot mountain at Big Cottonwood Canyon a couple weeks ago. Well,
I think it's crucial for kids, especially younger girls, to have hobbies and interests and things that give them that confidence, right? So that they're not searching for it later on in other parts.
Yeah.
Do you do that to install confidence in her, or are you just doing that to keep her busy mostly?
Oh, no, absolutely. My daughter especially, she craves structure, but she also is just would be running up and down these walls if we let her. And so for her, it's a really beautiful thing too, because she does ballet, she does figure skating. She started doing the mountain climbing, and it's really great for her to hone in and focus on one thing. and then watch their confidence just build. It's like, I climbed up that 80-foot mountain 3 times up and down. That's like, that feels good for anyone.
Yeah. And I like to ask, so, I mean, obviously I think you can look back at the end of like kind of where you're at versus kind of what all has happened down the line. Everybody has things you change or do differently, but is there one thing in particular you would go back and tell Naomi at 23, a piece of advice? What would you tell yourself at 23?
I would have told myself not to have grown up so fast and to have enjoyed life. I tell people all the time, my friends make fun of me. I'm like, Utah is so beautiful. They're like, girl, you've been gone too long. I'm like, but I didn't see this when I was younger. I didn't see how beautiful it was, and it's all about perspective. And I really wish that I would have taken the time to be a kid, to be in high school, be present, and enjoyed life a little bit more. And unfortunately, I think I had to grow up a little bit faster because I was the oldest one. But I wish I would have kind of just taken a step back and enjoyed life a little bit more when I was younger.
I think it's good advice. I try to tell young people, especially because I kind of did the same thing. I remember when I started a business when I was 22 and we franchised it when I was 23, and then I was like going broke at 24, and it was like, wow, I grew up really fast. And looking back, I'm glad that happened because it kind of led to where I'm, been able to get to today. But at the same time, I always joke, I'm like, I grew up way faster than most of my friends in that way. And there is an art to just make sure that you're not missing the journey as you're going along.
100%.
I think one thing that people make a mistake is when you're looking forward to something else. People ask me now, and I like to say, look, I like to find the beauty in the mess. The mess kind of has some beauty in it. And so rather than looking forward all the time at what's next or what's to come, is just to kind of own and kind of appreciate that it doesn't really matter. Yeah. And I'm going to, whether I have to hang on right now because life's just hammering me, or I can really take advantage of this time and excel and do what I want to do, but enjoying those moments along the path.
100%. I was working with an instructor earlier before you came, and she's going through, her dad is sick, and she's, she could have easily called me and canceled, but she didn't. She came here and she said, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared. And I said, that's okay. I'll make a playlist for you, get on the bike, and I just want you to teach to it. And this is one of our best days that we had because she was the best version of herself. She was authentic, she was in the moment. I said, just pretend, let's say you had to teach today, and let's say that you were at the ER all night with your dad. How are you going to bring this into this room to inspire them? And she did that, and that's a beautiful thing.
I think that's awesome. Well, and then last question I want to ask is kind of where do you see yourself 5-10 years down the road? Do you have a plan that far out? Or
I do. I see myself going on tour with an artist because I have not yet done that. And dancing and performing, to me, there's that bug in there, man. It's still in there. And so I feel like with Rhythm, as she gets older, it gets a little bit easier where I can get to do those things again. Luckily, we've been able to work on a couple projects together already, and I love that. So I want to do some maybe Cheerios commercial. Her and I will be on there. I want to do a tour. I see Rebel House getting bigger. I see Rebel House in possibly other states, and so I see myself traveling, training more instructors, continuing to inspire around the world. That's my biggest goal. I just want to reach that person in that back corner and just give them something, because that's what they give me. Because when I was in a deep place, this bike and this dark room was kept me going. So yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. And I love how you've been able to tie passion and things that have helped you out into your work and now into your family life as well.
It's important. I think everybody, our suicide rate is through the roof. And there's so much loneliness and heartache, but there's also so much beauty. And all it takes is a conversation to reach out, to lend a hand, to tell somebody that they're needed. And sometimes that just makes the world of difference.
I think it's a good advice to end on. So
yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you. This
You're
is
awesome.
Oh, you're awesome. Thank
and
you
if
for
you
joining
guys,
us.
tell people real quick, where is Rebel House if you want to come down and check it out?
So Rebel House is downtown. We're on 320 West, 200 South.
In Salt Lake City.
In Salt Lake City, Utah. We're downtown. We do cycling and boxing. And both classes are fabulous. Our instructors are top notch. They work constantly, they're always being trained on different ways to inspire and create better workouts for our clients. So please come and visit us.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.